Yeah.
for decades in filmmaking. You look at, I think this was last year, it might have been the year before, but the actors who were in Franco Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet, they were 15 and 16 years old. They were talked into or forced a nude scene that really didn't sign up for. But this was shot in Italy. Things were very different then. And they did this nude scene. And now that things have changed so much, they sued Paramount, the filmmakers, and the whole production. This was 40 years ago, and they're still dealing with this psychological scar.
Yeah. Wow.
So it's exciting now to be involved in something knowing that that sort of thing will never happen again.
Yeah. I know that you said that Steven Spielberg kind of gave you your first leg up in the industry of casting. Can you tell that story?
Well, I was working for an office called Fenton and Feinberg. It was Mike Fenton and Jane Feinberg. And casting was very different then, in that there were only probably 8 to 10 offices, if that, across the country that were major casting directors. Now there's probably 300 of us, and I was with Fenton and Feinberg for 5 years, and they really brought me up. They really taught me a lot. And I was casting along with Mike Fenton, E.T. And he was so great. We did many films for him, but that was the first film that I actually got billing on, that I got my name on the screen. And that changed everything. And so he was part of that. Kathy Kennedy, the producers, along with Frank Marshall, were also a huge part of making that happen. And so once that happened, the next thing was the producers on Footloose ran into Steven right after E.T. came out, and said, who found these kids? And he said, me. And so that really helped put me on the map. And then I got Footloose, and then I went off on my own, and things took off.
So, it's so interesting because as I was a little girl, the shows that you cast were all my favorites, like E.T., Raiders of the Lost Ark, Poltergeist, Footloose, of course. I know every line to every one of these movies, which I think is fantastic. But when I was pregnant with my first daughter, I wanted to give her a name that I loved, and I ended up naming her Wyatt, a boy's name. But the name I was going to name her was Elliot because of the character in E.T.
Oh.
And E.T. was when she was little, it was one of the first movies when I kind of knew she could pay attention. I was like, you have to see this movie. It's so good. You'll love it. And, I think from somebody who's clearly not in the industry, doesn't know anything about it, casting is what makes a movie, I would assume. It either makes it or breaks it, because I'm sure the script was fantastic to begin with. And then you have these directors and whoever producers that are unbelievable. But that kid, the two kids, and Drew Barrymore, it made their career, and it made the movie so fantastic. So how do you know, how you're going to pick that right character, especially if they're not famous already? How do you know they're going to be right for the role, and that they're going to bring that role out and make the movie what it becomes?
It's really a sixth sense. It's something in my gut. I grew up watching so much television and watched so many movies, and I just had this innate affinity for it. And then, like I said, working at Fenton Feinberg for 5 years, I was exposed to so many actors. And again, you have to do your homework. You have to watch a lot of films and watch a lot of old films and understand what a character brings. And when we cast the Elliot part, we had all decided on another kid. And we wanted to see what his chemistry was like with all the other kids that we had chosen, because we had chosen kids for the best friend and the brother. And so we brought them all together at the writer's house and had them play Dungeons and Dragons together, and stood on the outside of the room and just kind of watched them play. And in a few minutes, it became really obvious that nobody liked this little boy.
Oh.
And it was not going well. And I was sitting there going, oh shit, I have to start over. And it became very clear that he was not our boy. And so just then, a director and production designer named Jack Fisk just directed a movie with his wife, Sissy Spacek, in Texas. And they found this little boy from a farm in the middle of nowhere in Texas. Their casting person did. And so he told Spielberg about this boy, and that was Henry Thomas. And we flew him and his mother into Los Angeles to do a screen test. And again, this is before videotape existed. You know, we used like big old cameras. Mm-hmm. And so he read for us, and he was exhausted and weary, and it just didn't go great, but we saw something in him. You know, he looked the part for sure. And so Steven suggested an improv. And so he did an improvisation scene with my boss, Mike Fenton, where Fenton was playing a representative of NASA. Mm-hmm. And he was there because he had heard that there was an alien living in his house, and they wanted him so that they could study him. And Henry, your job is to do everything you can do to not let him take him. Go. And there's a video on YouTube that you can watch. Have you seen this?
No.
Oh gosh. You have to show it to your little girl.
Will it bring me to tears?
And in like 2 seconds, he had us all weeping. We were all behind the camera weeping. He just used his nervous energy into doing anything he could do to keep that alien, because he was his friend. I mean, kids are amazing because they understand imagination. Yes. You know, their imagination is enormous. They also don't have an ego formed yet. And so they will do anything. They don't care whether they look stupid.
Right.
And so, right. And as we get older and we get into puberty, we start building those blocks to make ourselves look cool.
Right.
And your imagination goes like this, and you're more aloof in a way.